Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that warm introduction. Valued partners, wherever you are, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. We're really excited to be able to connect with you today and have the opportunity to share more about the NOC system. You may have heard of it. You might know a lot about it. But it's something that's going to become really, really important with all the changes coming from IRCC relating to labor markets, relating to what programs are eligible for work permits and later immigration. But before I kind of dive into the details, I'll give you a quick little inside scoop about my background because it'll help you understand the lens I bring to this. So I did my master's in immigration and settlement studies, and I did all my research on temporary residents, so foreign workers and international students. I did my my internship at IRCC in the temporary resident program delivery unit, and I've also undertaken the RCIC training over 10 years now. I've had the designation, so I kind of bring this different lens to this work. I understand the machinery of government and how those regulations are designed, as well as the policy framework from which IRCC comes and looks at these things. So without further delay, as you can see the agenda, we're gonna cover some student demographics, immigration pathways. We'll share some labor market data. And then Angel's going to kind of dive into some practical application of the NOC system and do a little bit of a demo. We think some of these, not just the knowledge, but some of the tactical takeaways that Angel's going to share with you can be an advantage to you as agencies. It's going to help you convert students. It's going to help you make sure that they're in the right programs, in programs that they want to study, in programs that have some sort of labor market demand and are eligible for high-skilled employment, which by extension qualifies them for permanent residency. So with that, let's jump into the next slide so I can tell you a little bit about the context of the world of immigration that we live in. And so I like to be really upfront about immigration in Canada. We know there's a lot of turbulence and uncertainty right now in Canada, but I do want to draw your attention to Canada as fundamentally being an immigrant country, a country of immigration. Canada's development since its rise as a nation has relied on immigration for every stage of development. So everything from agriculture to industrialization, resource extraction, and even our modern day knowledge economy all rely on an immigration system to attract the talent and retain the talent in Canada. And so that's a principle underpinning Canada's prosperity. And that's not going away. You know, there can be changes to the work permit program, but this fundamental reliance on immigration is not going away. And I think that's important for us to know. IRCC must calibrate its system to ensure our talent attraction is filling our labor markets and ensuring our prosperity. So another mega trend that we're experiencing is the demographic, what we call demographic time bomb. Boomers are exiting the labor market. They're retiring in droves. I think it's like 1,000 a month or more. And so that's leaving a lot of vacant positions in small businesses, in the workplace, and that creates pressure on our social safety net. So as of 2016, we had 4 workers paying into the tax base to support 1 retiree. By 2035, there's only going to be 2 workers for every retiree. So it's going to put a lot of strain on public finances. So this is how we sustained healthcare. This is how we sustain government programs like the OAS program and all the benefits that families receive. They all rely on a dependency ratio. You need at least 3 or 4 workers usually to support an aging population. So Keep that in mind. IRCC does not want to risk this ratio. The fertility rate, we're the 181st worst country at having babies. We need to have 2.1 babies per household, and we're only having about 1.6. It might have even dipped further after the pandemic. Might even be 1.5 right now, 1.4. Immigration rate now accounts for more than 65% of Canada's population growth, and we expect that to go to almost 100 by 2030. And this is all Statistics Canada data and forecasts. The other important thing to remember, especially as it relates to international students in Canada, is the losses we currently experience with regular immigration. So we lose about between 10 and about $13 billion a year because newcomers' credentials aren't recognized by employees or regulatory bodies. So international education actually solves this problem because students come and get their credentials in Canada. So we get to skip some of the pains of normal immigration, right? When someone immigrates and doesn't have a Canadian credential, they're going to struggle more than an international student. RBC also did a study and found that we have a loss of 50 billion to GDP each year because wage and employment level gaps, the human capital these newcomers come with, is not valued in the labor market. And so international education solves these problems. And IRCC knows this, and I think that's part of what they're trying to figure out. Next slide, please. So talking a little bit about the NOC system, there's actually two systems. There's the NOC, and then there's the SIP. And so the NOC system is managed by Employment and Social Development Canada. It's another government department, and IRCC, and they mapped these occupations to the NOC system, National Occupation Classification System. And they map it against this other classification system called the SIP, Classification of Instructional Programs. And so the SIP actually aligns with labor market. So we use the SIP system when we develop new programs. So programs of study that correspond to educational requirements in long-term shortage. So projections between 2022 and 2023. And these are used in express entry. So I know there's a lot of acronyms here. We'll still focus on the NOC code system, but you got to know that there's two systems that IRCC uses, especially for PR classification. And the NOC helps IRCC determine the skill level. IRCC wants to admit or give PR to the highest skilled graduates in the international education sector. So you got to remember that. So examples of a NOC, let's take carpentry, would be mapped to the following programs. For example, let's say that would be construction trades, carpentry, woodworking / general. And Angel's going to get into those details a little bit later. So with proposed changes that are coming up from IRCC, for the post-graduation work permit, a big part of the goal is to reduce the number of postgraduate work permit holders, but make sure that they don't reduce the ones that are in high demand. So if we go to the next slide, you may or may not have seen this, but these are the questions IRCC is asking the provincial governments and the national associations for education. So CBIE and CICAN and Universities Canada. So most of these questions are really trying to understand what are the labor market demands in those provinces, what programs align with those labor market demands, if there should be exemptions, and also if job offers should become a component of eligibility for post-graduation work permits. So that's a bit of a summary, but what's really causing a lot of concern, and you're likely aware of this, is question 5, where IRCC is basically asking if they should be applying the changes to everyone already in Canada without a grandfathering clause. And so that's causing quite a bit of concern, rightfully so, from applicants, families, so on and so forth. We're hoping cool heads will prevail. We're hoping that IRCC understands the damage that this would do to the sector. But we also think Canadians, we in Canada, we value fairness and procedural fairness. We expect that this Canadian value is applied to this question and that we do honor what we're saying to students when they apply and not change the rules once they're in a program. So we're really hoping that that's the outcome. We can't guarantee anything, but we think that this question should never have been asked and shared like this because it is creating a lot of concern. They're also asking the provinces about how the provincial nominee programs could interface with any of the changes. We haven't heard from our provincial counterparts here of what advice they've given. The problem with the PNPs is that they're usually small quotas. There's 6,000 or 7,000 seats per year, so they really don't move the needle. But perhaps this might be a way to get more seats. This is all uncertain and unknown to the stage, but with this uncertainty, I think what our key message at SAIT is that if there's any institution that's going to come through this really well, it's going to be SAIT, because we have been mapping the NOC codes for the last 3.5 years. Our educational model is intertwined with industry. And we know that the majority of our programs are in high demand, evidenced by our very strong employment rates. So our employment rates are between 89 and 93%, depending on the program. So we know, as a matter of fact, and we have the data to show that we have very strong employment rates, and we're hoping that that's actually going to play into our favor. We believe that universities are probably going to not have the same alignment because they're just not as focused on occupations. So that it remains to be seen, but it'll be interesting to see how these reforms come out. I will note that we expect the post-graduation work permit revisions and decisions and announcements to happen at the end of October, when IRCC announces its level planning. Then this will be the first time they announce temporary resident numbers as well. So keep an eye out for that. Next slide, please. I do want to just share where SAIT is. I don't know where everyone on the call is from. That's why I was asking if you could just put it into the chat so we could just see where you are geographically. But the global recruitment team is spread across the world. Brian, our manager, likes to joke that the sun never sets on the SAIT recruitment team because we're all over the world. But we share this to show you the scope of our recruitment umbrella and team, but also to encourage you, if you are expanding into a new region, to reach out to our SAIT recruitment staff in that region to strategize and partner on new initiatives. Next slide, please. In terms of employment and labor market data, we asked our research team at SAIT to pull some data for you. Alberta is probably the one place in Canada that is still doing quite well. Job growth is strong in the goods producing sector. 92,000 jobs we're creating in Alberta for a year-over-year growth of about almost 4%. Oil and gas and all the industries attached are doing very well. The Trans Mountain Pipeline recently opened, and that's going to add significantly to our GDP and creation of jobs. Construction is growing quickly in Alberta, faster than in, for example, the GTA or even the Lower Mainland in Vancouver. Toronto is not building as many houses Edmonton or Calgary is right now, and Toronto's 3 or 4 times the size of each city. So that tells you a little bit about how quickly things happen in Alberta relative to other parts of the country. Migration, interprovincially and international, is very strong, pretty much the strongest in the country. And business optimism is extremely strong right now. I'll draw your attention to the right of the screen here. And this is comparing Canada to Alberta. And you'll see the orange bar is basically outperforming the rest of Canada, with the exception of public sector employment, likely because the federal government is based in Ontario and Ottawa. But everything from full-time to part-time to private sector job growth is much stronger here in Alberta. So there's still lots of job creation, evidenced by a stronger economy. Next slide. So this is an interesting one. There's a great infographic on the right, but I'll just touch on a couple of points. So employment in the Calgary region continues to increase in 2024. It's up about 43,000 jobs from May last year. Unemployment and employment rates continue to grow, but that's just because the migration into Calgary and Alberta is so strong. You're going to get more unemployment, but also more job growth at the same time. The size of the labor force is increasing very quickly, and year-over-year numbers of those not in the labor force in May dropped a smaller degree and is tracking 2023. The population of Calgary, the city itself, is at 1.5 million, so it's increased significantly. But then when you take the greater Calgary region, we're probably closer to 1.7 million people in the city. So growing extremely fast. If you look at the infographic, you'll note that seasonal adjusted 3-month moving average in May 2024 was 900,090, almost 1 million employed in a city of our size, which is really, really strong, because you're not going to have everyone working. You're going to have kids, you're going to have teenagers, you're going to have retirees. So that almost 1 million is a very strong figure. Hourly wages, average wages, hourly and weekly, are both up just over 7%. And then at the bottom, you can see some of the areas. So transportation and warehousing, healthcare, accommodation, and food services, they're all up. So these are trends that you might want to piggyback on when you're counseling students and they're concerned about whether or not those programs are going to be aligned with the labor market and be impacted by the changes IRCC is going to make to the work permit. Next slide, please. So here's another one. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. We'll share the slide deck, but this just gives you a sense of the trend for job postings. What are those top areas and where do they ebb and flow? So everything from accommodation to professional and scientific services, educational services, so on and so forth. And then on the left, you'll see some of the top NOC occupations for you to have a look at. And of course, Angel's going to go into more depth on how to identify the NOCs and sift through and find the right one for your customers. Next slide, please. I thought I'd just include this visual. It just shows you how coveted Alberta is right now. Not only do we have very strong international migration, and this is just a quarterly report from last year, but it shows you it's not just international migration coming in. The majority of Canada is migrating to Alberta because of the strong economy, the affordability, and the opportunities that you get when you move to Alberta. And it's evidenced clearly by our population growth. Affordability is an issue across all of Canada. It's a much bigger issue in, Southern Ontario, GTA, Vancouver. It is increasing in Calgary, but it's still reasonable. It's still affordable. Rents are not consuming more than 50% of your income which is just not a sustainable approach. It's much more reasonable here. We do have inflation, but it is also coming down. I think that's an important thing to communicate with your customers and your prospects is Alberta is open for business. It's attracting Canadians and international folks alike. And you can actually get ahead if you take up that opportunity. Next slide, please. You may be familiar with the pathway, the immigration pathway. I'd say this is the most common one. You get your 2-year program. You have about 6 months to apply for a work permit. Once you get your work permit, you'll get between 2 to 3 years. And in that time, if you secure a skilled occupation using the NOC system, that's how you find out. You then become eligible for permanent residency. And then, of course, once you have permanent residency, you can apply for citizenship within 3 years of being a permanent resident. So that's the usual pathway. The NOC mapping that we've done and the systems that we're going to show you help you counsel your customers right from the get-go at the top of the funnel. You can start to have these conversations about this slide. How are we going to get you here? Let us find your NOC. Let us start to strategize. Let's make sure that this is the right NOC and the right program for you. Next slide, please. So we touched briefly on the NOC and the SIP earlier in the presentation, but I will just review it one more time before we get into the nitty-gritty. So the National Occupation Classification System, it's a standardized framework created by the Canadian government to categorize and classify occupations in the Canadian labor market. And so keywords here, categorize and classify. This means it can organize the higher skilled jobs from the lower skilled jobs. And that is how IRCC determines how you get more points or how you qualify for the various permanent residency programs. So the NOC system standardizes occupational requirements for thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of jobs in the labor market in Canada, and it helps job seekers understand the duties, skills, and educational requirements for specific occupations. It doesn't just help job seekers, it helps you as counselors, as agents, guide your customers, help them understand what does that end occupation look like? What are the duties? How much will you get paid? Will it make me eligible for PR? Or is it even in demand? So this is data and a system that really helps you help your customer, the prospect and their family find the best possible product and solution in the Canadian education sector. So the NOC system consists of a matrix of job titles, skill types, codes, making identifying and understanding different occupations easier. So I say easier, tongue-in-cheek here, because it's only easy if you understand how to use the system. And that's what we're going to teach you today, how to use the system so it's easier for you to guide your customers. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, since I arrived at SAIT over 4 years ago, I knew that the NOC system was important. So we undertook a project with Angel's help, who's on the call today and will present, to map every program to NOC codes that are eligible for PR and that are occupations that students usually go into once they graduate. So on that second column, we have included those NOCs that we've mapped. So using this mapping, you can literally, find the program, let's say it's legal assisting that a student's interested in, and then you can copy and paste those NOC codes and put them into the government website and review that occupation with your customer. Some jobs, once you review them with your customer, they might say, "Ooh, I don't like that. That's not interesting to me. I don't like that kind of work." That might actually help you choose a different program that's better aligned with their goals. both socially, professionally, and financially. So it's a great tool at that stage. But then you can take it further, because every NOC listed in that column, we've double checked to make sure it's a skilled occupation and it's eligible for PR. So you can already start to inform that applicant and their families that a lot of this work has been done, and that there can be a very rewarding return on investment if they achieve that occupation when they graduate. So we've done this with all programs. So this is an example of 2-year programs. The next slide will show you 1-year certificates, and then the next one will show you our degree and bachelor's programs. If you don't have this, don't worry, we will give you digital copies. Just reach out to Tom. But let's go to the next slide. We also have included these in all of our program updates, which I'll share later. But right now I'm going to turn it over to Angel to dive into the details. Over to you, Angel.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Angel. I'm the Immigration Support Specialist at State. So it's really great to be here on the NOC 2021 structure. It's the TEER system that you might already heard of. So this structure is really important, representing training, education, experience, and the responsibilities involved or required for an occupation. This is new, brought by the NOC 2021. Previously was NOC 2016, and it was the skill level ABCD. It's vitally important to all international students, because later on, when they apply for, first of all, when they identify their first job in Canada, there must be an NOC related to the job. And secondly, if they are interested in applying for PR, this information is definitely required when they apply for PR. And we will go into detail that how this is very decisive when it comes to their PR application. The system, it has 6 levels from tier 0 to tier 5, ranging from the highest management occupation to lower, which requires no formal education, but maybe a short-term work demonstration. In the system, tier 0 to 1 to 3 are considered as skilled level jobs by IRCC when it comes to the immigration application. And you can actually find this tier level information in every single NOC code, because the second digit of the 5-digit number of a NOC code is the tier level. So for example, a random example probably doesn't exist. This NOC code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then 2 in the second digit represent that this occupation is tier 2, which requires a college diploma and some training that's over 2 or more years if it's apprenticeship training. Next slide, please. So normally, how to identify the NOC code? This is the common logic that once there's the potential student or a client approaching us, that first of all, there's the research of the possible PR program that the candidate could be eligible for after a 2-year or 4-year studies at SIT. And then there's the understanding of what programs are available at SIT facing international students. On our program website, there will be the listed NOC code that related to each program that's available for student after graduation. And with that specific code information, you can go to Government of Canada's website, search the specific code, and then once you enter into the detailed occupation page, the occupation information will be listed there, including the lead statement, job descriptions or the main duties, what is required as the education, training, if there's additional professional titles or designations normally required, it will be all listed there. In the case that if sometimes the students coming here with a specific goal that they already know that they want to be occupation or profession in the future, for example, the graphic designer, engineer, software developer, or something else, you can directly go to the website. And then the government of website, there's the find your NOC that we shared in the webinar invitation, that you can quickly search the title, and then based on the title's name, it will show up here. I'm going to share it in the chat. On this page, you will also find that the TEER information is in the first column of the NOC. And then if there is anything that coming up as the NOC code, then you can go to the detailed website to find the NOC occupation information there, because you can either search by title or by code. There's a little tips on the searching by title, because sometimes it could be at the first try, you don't find the exact occupation, because the real world, the student might have different job titles, but you can alternate the keywords and then broaden your searches. For example, maybe a financial advisor in a real world can be also called portfolio manager, wealth manager, right? It doesn't relate to the exact government word, but you can always double check what exactly they're doing and then try to change or replace some words when it comes to the NOC search. Of course, if you know that you can find the NOC, our program information website, you will then find the NOC code listed there. The slide, please. So the information is also very important to connect the students with their career goal and the SEED program. So I think there are two ways to do this. And one thing is that, asking the students, what do you want to be in the future after the studies in Canada? And they tell you that they want to be certain things. Then you can identify what is the NOC code. As we explained previously, that by searching on the Government of Canada's website. Once you have that NOC code, then you can just do a Control F to search on our SEED NOC sheet and find what is the program that can lead into their dream occupation after graduation. Another way to do this is to first ask the student's career goal, and then you can scan code here, there, and then go to the Career Coach website. Career Coach website is interconnected between SEED program as well as the occupations that they can lead to after graduation. The only thing is that the occupation classification there is classified by the state. That classification instruction programs that's mentioned by Patrick is not the NOC, but it's very relevant and interconnected. The benefit of using Career Coach is that once you search the occupation there, what is available at SEED and the relevant program information will be immediately showing down there. And just one more extra step that you need to take is to double check if the program is open to international students, because this platform is opening to anyone, including international students as well as domestic students. So give it a try in both ways. I think this is very helpful once you know that what the student is, maybe their background already says that they had a financial or econ background, but this step will make sure that what they want to be is very closely connected with the SEED program and will build their confidence in achieving their career goals in the future. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, NOC is interconnected with many important things. And one aspect is to the PR success or the PR pathway. I think it's serving in two important steps or elements. So when it comes to the PR application, one thing is to find the right program, and this includes to double check if the occupation leads to the candidate's eligibility for a program. So for example, it's certain programs always have this occupation or NOC requirements in their eligibility. For the Common Canadian Experience class, it needs to be a skilled occupation. So the candidates must have occupations with TEER level 0 to 3. Where compared to AOS, the Alberta Opportunity Stream, although the eligibility part that from TEER 0 to 5, all candidates can apply on the program website, there is a list of NOC that is ineligible for AOS. And of course, there are other streams that if you are involved with PR application, you might be familiar that some streams only ask a specific NOCs. For example, the newest, the tourism and the travel stream that only has certain NOC related to hospitality and tourism. The other thing is that NOC really helps you to identify the candidate's background and then connect it to their future PR success. Because right now, both federal and provinces are inviting candidates based on their occupations, meeting the labor market demand. And for example, the very famous express entry category-based runoff invitation in the EE that we know, the general job has the really high marks that normally undergraduate student might need really good experience to achieve and compete. But if they identify themselves in certain category, they might get more chances to be invited. Plus, the invitation cutoff CRS score might be lower than the general job. So I recommend you always do cross-check between the more advanced stream list, such as the category-based list with state program NOC program sheet. Because the other day, when I looked into this, I always thought that, STEM majors, of course, we have so many majors or programs providing students related to the occupations, engineers, software developers, data analysts. But the other day I found out, oh, hey, the transport occupation that there is the aircraft assemblers. And we have the aircraft engineer maintenance diploma program that leads to this NOC. So definitely someone has maybe a mechanical engineer background can apply to this diploma and then lead to this occupation in the future. And they have such an advantage when it comes to the category-based runoff invitation. And then there's also the AIP Express Entry Tech Accelerated Pathway that has a specific list of occupations that Alberta is prioritizing both the invitation as well as the processing of the candidates. Last but not least on this page, I want to mention that even outside of the eligibility check, that our NOC information is serving for the PGWP holders to apply for AOS program. Because under this program, AOS requires the PGWP holders to have their occupation related to their field of study in Alberta. And sometimes, graduates might be confused why is it really connected? Then maybe you can direct them that what is your NOC? Let's find your NOC. And if your NOC is listed on SAIT program website, then we know that for sure you are on the right track, that your occupation is related to the field of your study. Next slide, please. So NOC has many elements from the lead statement, employment requirements, some example titles and main duties. And I think one important thing about NOC is that once you know the NOC elements and know that how important it's connected with the PR application, then it's part of the important step that to select the appropriate NOC for the candidates, as well as to ensure the supporting documentation has the job descriptions matching with the NOC main duties. So getting that all correct, convincing IRCC that this candidate has this occupation, which is aligning with the government's requirement, classification will be a faster or smoother application process. Because if the NOC selection maybe is not the exact NOC that IRCC thinks this candidate is working with, then or the job description is not clearly matching with the NOC that the candidate should be choosing for, then there may be back and forth delaying in the processing, because IRCC might ask additional document to clarify. And the next slide, please. So here I also want to mention that there is a good use of the NOC information together with the help of ChatGPT to generate the statement of purpose, or what we call the study plan for the student's study permit application. So all you need is that the brief CV or resume from the candidate, the NOC number, as well as the program information from SAIT, and then asking ChatGPT to generate the required information for the study permit application. I'm going to share my screen, and then so everyone can take a look what's going on there. Let's see, so screen three. So I have this all copy pasted into the ChatGPT box, and then you can see what's happening there. So first of all, I'm going to ask ChatGPT that, hey, please combine my resume, program description, and NOC to create the statement of purpose for my IRCC study permit application, highlighting how my career path and ambitions would support my study permit application. This is for the certain program at SAIT, and my background is below. So the brief resume is pasted here. Students has the Bachelor of Fine Arts in the past and now wants to become a graphic designer. So I'm going to ask a ChatGPT that So this is going to be graphic designer job duties and responsibilities, as well as please avoid any bullet points in it, but maybe have subtitles when it comes to writing. And then copy paste the program information of the interactive design program to the chat as well. It's a little bit long, but this information will be helpful to write why SATE program can stand out in the computation and is helpful in the application. So with the subtitle, you can see that it usually follow the logic, that was the background of the candidates and reasons why they choose SATE specific program. You can use a specific occupation to identify, but you can also combine different occupation information that's listed on our program webpage, and then to generate this part, the plans for future. And yes, this is it. That it's a very useful tool, but to combine everything into the whole documentations. So of course you can play around with it if you are not satisfied with the result, but this is how it works, and it's just a very helpful and smooth, especially highlighting the skills and responsibilities from the occupation point of view. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Angel. I think that's pretty cool. If you are submitting applications on behalf of your applicants, wow, think about that. You've just taken a lengthy SOP process and probably you can run it in like less than 3 or 4 minutes. So that's huge productivity gains for you, and not just productivity gains, but you're actually taking all the information IRCC is looking for. So what's the student's background? What is the program they're going to be taking? And then how does that program align with the labor market demands, the duties of that role, and how does it all come together in a meaningful way for the officer to understand and believe? Key word, believe and have confidence in. And so just remember that the NOC system, the way we've mapped it out for you, can be a game changer in your conversions and the confidence your customers have in your ability to communicate their needs through the visa process. So thanks, Angel. That was really well done, and I hope our audience appreciates it. I will draw your attention to some additional resources on the NOC system. As Canada's leading institution managing NOC codes, we've also created on our website videos, short, bite-sized videos that you can watch that explain the NOC system. You could watch one of these at your team meetings to build that awareness, knowledge, and competence within your teams. That's one use of this. But you can also send them to your applicants and say, hey, this is why the NOC's important. This is why we were looking at them. This is how much you get paid with this NOC. All of those things you can explain just using our videos. So if you go to the SATE.ca website, under the international navigation bar, you'll see it highlighted on the screen, but you can go yourself and look it up very quickly and play those right in front of your customers if you need to. Next slide, please. And remember, I showed you a sheet earlier where the programs are mapped to the NOCs in a separate column. So if you don't have that handy, you can also just go to any program page at SATE, and you'll notice at the very bottom, we've included the NOCs there as well. So you can find that on our website, highlighted below. In addition to the NOCs mapped at the bottom, you'll see that there's also an Explore the Programs and Courses section and a Careers tab right there, Potential Careers, just above the NOC codes. So that's also taking real labor market data and telling you what occupations are in demand, what are the salaries, both in Calgary and across Canada. So another great data point that you can easily use online anywhere you are to communicate the NOC, what jobs are in demand, and how much they pay. Critical data points to help conversion. All right, so I'm gonna pass it back to Angel now to wrap things up before we go into the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So this is the information that I shared into the chat earlier. That this is the main page for searching on the NOC information that you can search on either job title, or you can search in the second tab for the NOC code. Both are very helpful that and you can also dive down into the advanced search if you don't find your immediate answer. But yeah, this is the homepage of the government's website of the NOC. So yeah. Oh, and there's the quick step page that that might be better when you search on the title, because the other page that when you go on the title search is probably going to multiple answers and sometimes it's confusing, but this page is really the simplified one when you go for the job title search, and then you can find the NOC code. The NOC code, once you get the code, you search on the detailed website page for the code. It's more accurate, and you know, the visual will be simplified and easy to use on this page.